but also isolating body parts too. So we're going to do a little bit of everything. In the old days, Katie, remember how we did sit-ups? Remember, we're like, go ahead, we're going to show them. And there's nothing wrong with sit-ups, but you know, you're lying on your back and someone's holding your feet up here, and have your feet up, and someone's holding it and she does sit-ups. Like, bring your elbows to your knees. Right, right, right. Now what's happening here is this muscle called the hip flexor is doing all of the work. So that, you know, and then she's straining to get past parallel, and it's not a really good exercise to measure abdominal strength and muscular endurance, and it can actually hurt your client. Then we've kind of moved on to a crunch exercise, which crunches are good exercises, where you're on your back. And let me take you through the perfect crunch. First, what we would have doing, and look at her abdominal definition. That's because not only does she train, but she does the eating program too. But for a crunch, we have her knees up, and then her first movement is to bring her low back flat to the bench. Good. So she's literally moving into a posterior pelvic tilt, and that's contracting her abdominal muscles. Then she curls her rib cage toward her pubis. Good. But as she does it, I'm going to either keep her eyes up, good, or her chin on her chest the whole time. Either way is fine, but not rocking back and forth. So either way. And then she uncurls and untilts. Good. So it's like a four-step approach. And this, doing it this way is very functional because it's 4 movements in one instead of, you know, just trying to jam as many crunches as you can. Good. And look at that perfect form. So it's tilt, curl, uncurl, untilt. Perfect. So that's a crunch. That's working literally all of those muscles, but as you can see, that's in a very linear way. It's up and down, and it's not real functional for the real world, and that's what we're about to get into. In the fitness industry, they now do a exercise that kind of measures the strength of those hip flexors versus the strength of your abdominals, and we're going to show you that. So we're going to lift your toes up toward the ceiling, and your goal with this, Katie, is to keep your low back flat on the floor the whole time as you slowly lower your legs. So your legs are good, good, good. Keep your low back flat, and that camera can tell, and right about, oh no, that's good. Right about there though, that's good. But that's excellent. Then bring your knees up and just relax. So for Katie, she was able to keep her low back flat to the floor to that 5-degree angle. So she has excellent strength in her core that was able to combat the strength of the hip flexors. Many people, especially guys, have really strong hip flexors, and the core is not strong enough to take that pull, and all of a sudden the back arches like this, and that's where we have back problems. So for Katie, she can do a lot of exercises that many other people can't do. For example, she could do a flutter kick. I want you to keep your low back flat to the floor, or in this case the bench, and then extend your legs not all the way, and we're literally just going to be extending right. So Katie could do this and have no problem because her low back's flat, and it's a nice exercise to stabilize the abdominals while she's working her hip flexors. She could do a scissor type movement with her legs, good, and again, as long as her low back is staying flat to the floor, she's fine. And I, of course, would recommend a little bit of a slight bend in the knee just to, again, to protect. And then she could do a huge bicycle kind of movement. And once again, in a personal training scenario, you can take your client through all of this, and you're just watching to be sure either a neutral spine or low back flat. And then the dreaded leg raises. Remember in high school you had to do leg raises? Well, it's contraindicated for the general population because they can't maintain that pelvic neutrality. But I bet Katie can do it. So leg raises would be literally up and down with her low back staying flat, and that's excellent. Good. So once again, we're not talking here about, hundreds of leg raises and hundreds, but this would be a way to provide some variety into your client's program if, in fact, they have strong enough abdominals to begin with that is going to combat the pull of the hip flexors. Very good. Now, Katie and I both do a lot of work on a stability ball, and so we're going to show you a little bit about that. Let me show you why. In physical activity, not just fitness, but in sport, there's a lot of movements like throwing a baseball or serving where you have to have flexibility of the abdominals as well as strength. And if you've been doing just crunches, and Katie, show that crunch again. Just go ahead and show a regular crunch on the bench. If you're doing crunches on a flat bench or on the floor for year after year after year, then the flexibility in that abdominal area is not going to happen. You're going to actually lose flexibility. Where instead, if you get on one of these balls, and Katie's going to show you the difference, where she has her low back on the ball, sitting on it, right? And then she does a crunch from this position. Now all of a sudden she's extending and she's getting a little stretch before each repetition. And there's a little bit of spinal extension there, which also is necessary, and it feels really good. And you can see this range of motion is a lot deeper than the one she was doing crunch, so it's enhancing not only strength but flexibility. So when you're doing your crunch exercises on a ball, make sure at first provide kind of a stable base, and then you can add the ball that's, she's having to keep it stable herself. Very good. All right, now,